Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with another episode of 40k Stories. It's been a while since I've done this actually. If anyone can remember back that far, my first video in this series was talking about Lord Solar Macarius. I'm still waiting to get the books to continue his story, so I might do that in future. But today I've got another big name from 40k. Big in name and in size. I'm talking of course about Ghazghkull Thraka, Orc Warlord Extraordinaire, and he's got a very complicated, well, it's not complicated at all, he's got a very long backstory. This guy has launched 2 invasions of the same planet and wrecked it nearly twice. This guy claims to be speaking directly to the Orc gods, so he's a pretty special guy. On the battlefield he's pretty well respected as well. His profile is the best in the Orc Codex by a country mile. Weapon skill 6, 4 wounds, immune to instant death, 2+ save, and you can make that a 2+ invulnerable for a turn. And he's just brilliant. Admittedly, he's 225 points in melee, so he's not that good in 6th, but hopefully he'll get a buff for 7th. Oh, by the way, talking about 7th, quick plug. Me and Commissar Warwick did a video quite recently talking about what we'd like to see in the Orc Codex, because there's rumours of an Orc Codex, and when I get some news about that, I will do a video here on this channel. But if you want to go and just see our musings upon it, I'll put a link in the description. Go head over and go check it out. It's half an hour, we do ramble, but it's just something I think you might enjoy. So, on to the story of Ghazghkull. Now, the Orc Codex does a good job of this, despite the fact it's 6 years old, and he's got, how many pages has he got dedicated to? 1, 2, 3, 4... He's got 5 pages in the Orc Codex, and it tells his story in great depth. So, a few little background facts. Ghazghkull was a regular Orc boy. He was just a regular Orc on the backwater planet of Uruk, U-R-K. Not sure where they got the name from. But he was just a regular Orc, unremarkable, until he sustained massive cranial injury from a bolter round. So we assume a Space Marine shot him in the head. His life was saved by Doc Groznyk, who later became Mad Doc Groznyk, famous for the, I think he was the one responsible for the squig brain, no, the exploding craniums. The Mad Boys do the squig brain transplants, my mistake. But Ghazghkull was never the same again, claiming that Gork and Mork, the Orc gods, for anybody who doesn't know they're Orc, spoke to him directly and that he was their prophet. Right. His conviction and brute strength led credence to these claims, and soon mighty gargants were being raised all around Uruk in the name of Ghazghkull's vision. It took him a decade, but he got huge, because Orcs grow on conflict, and warboss after warboss after warboss would challenge him, and he would just beat them into the ground. He gathered a massive number of greenskins to his banner and gave the greenskins of Uruk an ultimatum: follow him to glory or die. Easy enough. As one, the Orcs chose to follow Ghazghkull. Several thousand tribes eventually pledged allegiance to his cause, not just from Uruk, but around the whole area. And he raised a huge army. I mean, an Orc warband is part of a tribe, and a tribe is huge. A tribe is what launches a Waaagh, and we think of the scale of a Waaagh as being millions. This was thousands of millions of Orcs. He crushed the entire Uruk system, and every Orc, he said, who saw the flames of his passion firsthand would follow the prophet of the Waaagh into the jaws of hell. Ghazghkull knew well he would need every ounce of loyalty he could inspire, for his new target was none other than Armageddon. Now, Armageddon is an Imperial Guard homeworld. It is the basis of the Steel Legion, but that's nothing remarkable. There are a lot of Guard homeworlds out there. It's an industrial world, a vital node at the centre of Imperial navigational channels. Polluted wasteland of ash and metal, its innumerable weapon shops supply arms to Imperial Guard regiments several hundred light years away. This is basically the Imperial Armoury. Of course there are other ones, but this is one of the biggest. And if this linchpin were to fall, hundreds of worlds would be robbed of their defence capabilities, and whole systems would buckle and collapse under the weight of the onslaughts. Yeah, you take Armageddon, you've got the Imperium reeling. And I don't just mean reeling as if it lost a system, I mean near crippled, as in relying on the Space Marines pretty much. Which is not a bad thing, but there's not enough of them. Like many warlords before him, he intended to bring an era of war that would never end. And by the end of it, he got that wish, but we'll come on to that. He invaded Armageddon in 941 M41. I'm not sure how the 40k time system works, because we've kind of gone past 999 M41 now. There are references to that, but we're still in M41 on M42. I don't really know how the time system works. If someone could enlighten me in the comment section or on Twitter with a link, I would be much appreciative. He timed the incursion perfectly, launching his attack when the Imperial commanders were their most complacent. Overlord of Armageddon von Straub did nothing to investigate or report the appearance of Ghazghkull's Space Hulk when it arrived in the Armageddon system. The gigantic transport crashed straight onto the western continent, known as Armageddon Prime, and Ghazghkull started to deploy. In response, von Straub sent out his planetary defense piecemeal. He didn't say, right, you guys go, get them. He said, right, you go, and then when you're done, you go. And he did an awful job. It took them a week. Armageddon Prime was destroyed and taken over in a week. That's it. That's how bad the defense was. It took them a week for Ghazghkull to take it over. The Imperial High Command was content to withdraw behind the equatorial jungle into Armageddon Secundus, which is the second continent. And the idea was that the jungles between Prime and Secundus would stop the Orcs in their tracks. They'd just get stuck. Deadly jungles, they'd just get trapped and stuck, basically. It wouldn't matter. You could lose Prime, but Secundus is fine. Hades Hive is there, Acheron Hive is there, Hell's Reach Hive is there. So it's okay. He was wrong. Now, one person spoke up. One person had the guts to speak up against von Straub. And this name has lived forever since. That was Commissar Yarrick. He was just a commissar, no Lord Commissar, just a regular old commissar, who said to the astropathic choir, get aid, get help. He told the astropaths, the communicators, get help, send a message, we need it. And von Straub was not happy, so he sent him off to Hades Hive. Not a very nice name. Then again, you're on Armageddon, so yeah. So he was banished to this towering metropolis that was hundreds of miles away from von Straub and co. As I said, he was not concerned with the loss of Armageddon Prime, declaring the Orcs would never be able to cross the deadly jungles to Armageddon Secundus. No, that was a lie. Ghazghkull's forces swept out of the jungle and embarked on a mighty conquest, crossing the Stygies and Diabolus rivers and marching on the hives of Armageddon Secundus. Princess Mannheim of the Adeptus Titanicus, basically a Titan Legion commander, was told, send out your Titans, delay them. Unsupported by other forces. Mistake. You send guard with the Titans, just to give them cover. Nope. Mannheim obeyed, though he knew it would lead to the destruction of his beloved god machines. The Titans inflicted heavy casualties, but the Gargants had them outgunned and outnumbered. The Legio Metallica, which was one of the Titan legions based, were all but annihilated. So an entire Titan legion went down to this attack. Gargants, for those of you again who don't know, are similar to regular Titans. They're the Orc version. The Stomper would probably go on a line with an Imperial Knight, a Gargant with a Reaver, or a Warhound, possibly. I'm not sure. I haven't seen a true comparison, but obviously it depends on the Orc mech at hand. Everywhere, the Imperial forces were being driven back. Ghazghkull was sweeping through, laying siege to Infernus Hive. Refugees were dying in their tens of thousands on the ash dunes, dying from exposure to the environment, or the speed freaks, the bikers, the deathcopters, the war buggies that were harrying them and shooting at them. Ghazghkull then split his force into two. They descended on both Hades and Hell's Reach Hive. Hive Hell's Reach was set to be overrun. Hell's Reach comes into it a lot later. And von Straub unleashed a secret weapon, a massive stock of virus bombs. At last, the man is doing something right. Virus bombs would just wipe the Orcs out. They're like mini exterminatuses. However, many of the ancient devices malfunctioned, and as their payloads exploded prematurely above refugees and frontline troops alike, thousands of humans died in agony. I'm not saying no Orcs died, but more humans died. So he did the right thing, but he screwed it up epically. Hell's Reach, desperate men fought with improvised weapons and sheer determination to buy time. The dockside loaders welded themselves into their cranes and engaged the Gargants in a tempest of close-quarter violence. These cranes were as big as a Gargant, and they went head-to-head just swinging around trying to attack them. The fighting was bitter, but it fell as well. Hell's Reach went. Armageddon was ripe for the taking. It was all set. Ghazghkull had it made. And then he ran into Hades' Hive. Now, as we know, Yarrick has been sent there, and the defenders of the Hive fought as men possessed, inspired by the leadership of Commissar Yarrick. The Orcs made so little headway that Ghazghkull himself joined the attack. He was that desperate, and he was a monster. But the lines held. Despite regiments being killed by Ghazghkull alone, the line held. For weeks, Ghazghkull tried everything he could think of. Lightning assaults, feints, massive waves, orbital bombardment. Not working. Yarrick had him. The remaining Orc columns rumbled southwards towards Acheron and Tartarus Hive. The resultant siegers were bloody and violent in the extreme. Ghazghkull had the planet right where he wanted it. And the problem was, he ran out of time. The distraction at Hades had bought time for the Imperial forces. The astropathic message had got through. The skies were filled with Space Marine Thunderhawk gunships. The Astartes were coming. Yarrick's call was answered by 3 chapters. The Ultramarines, the Salamanders and the Blood Angels. Not their entire chapters, that would be nuts, but there were a large number from each chapter there. If Ghazghkull had actually made immediate plans to thwart this attack, he'd have still won. But he got his head focused on Yarrick. He was blinkered, and he would not be humiliated and fail to beat Yarrick. He would not lose to a human. So, he fell upon Hades' Hive with a hatred an Orc reserves for his greatest enemy. As we know, these two are great enemies, but they weren't at this point. The Space Marines arrived too late for Hades. Ghazghkull hunted down Yarrick and slammed him with a headbutt. Bang! Adamantium skull. This thing is the hardest metal I think we know in the Imperium, and he just floored him. Only Yarrick's iron will stopped him succumbing to the wounds. The Commissar was left for dead, but he swore an oath to hunt and kill Ghazghkull should it take his last breath. He's not dead yet, so he might get his wish. As the Orcs assaulted Tartarus Hive, Commander Dante, chapter master of the Blood Angels, made his move. Half of the Orcs were killed by the Blood Angels in one go. And Dante's brothers from the Ultramarines and Salamanders slowly pushed them back. The Orcs refused to surrender. Some fought to the death, others slipped into the ash wastes, or made their way to the jungles. The Space Marines began a masterful campaign that eventually broke the stranglehold. One night, the forces just withdrew. By the morning, the ash waste held little more than the corpses. And Ghazghkull left. He lost. He lost the second war for Armageddon. The first war for Armageddon was nothing to do with him. That was Angron. I might do that another time. So much of Armageddon lay shattered, and yet the second war was but a prelude for the destruction yet to come. The Orcs began to breed within the jungles. The Steel Legion then began going on cleansing missions just to try and sort them out. Keep them in check, because it's hard to wipe out an Orc population. It's so hard. And Ghazghkull withdrew. He went to Golgotha, marshalled his strength and dwelt on what he'd learnt. This is not your typical Orc. The Orc gods had revealed that in order to destroy your foe, you must first know him. For Ghazghkull, the war for Armageddon had been a way to learn how the Imperium would react. It was a training exercise for Ghazghkull. That's all it was. He didn't know it, but it was just a training exercise. Over the next few years, Ghazghkull allied with warlord Nazdreg Erdgrub. I'm very bad at Orc pronunciation. Combining forces to assault Piscina 4. Now, Piscina 4 was a Dark Angel stronghold, so I'm going to gloss over this bit quickly, because I'll probably do the tale of Piscina 4 another time, because it deserves its own 40k stories. So, they tested the teleporters, sorry, and they found them very useful, but they didn't win. Belial held the planet. So Nazdrek struck a deal with Ghazghkull and gave him the best mech and the teleporters trick in return to continue the war. So he just said, right, you keep fighting and I'll take these. That's what Ghazghkull did, which for an Orc is a fair deal. It means he can keep fighting, and that's fine. He had work to do. He then found his stronghold invaded, back in Golgotha, And, well, actually, stronger than that, he then tried to invade the planet of Golgotha. He's been in Golgotha's system, but not attack the planet. It's a mining world. He basically wanted to turn it into a giant ammo factory, fueling a second Waaagh into Armageddon. Using his teleporters, he quickly overcame the defences of the war engines and the battle colossi of the abhuman defenders. We assume this was an Ogrian world, or some abhuman world. Within weeks, the orcs had battered the defences into rubble. At the climax, Commissar Yarrick led a squadron of Baneblades into the fray. That kind of failed. They were overrun and surrounded by the evil suns. Yarrick was crushed under the tracks of the battle fortress Doomroller. Still wouldn't die, and his body was brought before Ghazghkull. After a few weeks of idle tortures, like torture, and so on, after a few weeks of that, Ghazghkull decided Commissar Yarrick was too good an enemy to waste. And, this guy's a better fight than this, I'm going to send him back. So he did. He released him because he wanted a good fight when he got back to Armageddon. Oddly enough, he didn't want to leave Armageddon at a disadvantage and right for the taking. He wanted a hard fight when he got there. Idiot. And 50 years in the making, this plan was coming. It took him 50 years. And 57 years to the day after the first Orc invasion, Ghazghkull's fleet tore back into the Armageddon sector. And the Greenskin hordes descended again. The mighty fleet outnumbered the Armageddon Imperial Navy fleet by 6 to 1. The Imperial Navy were outnumbered 6 to 1, and they had seriously big numbers of ships. Orc kill cruisers made suicidal rushes, losing a dozen of their number for a single vessel. Despite their skill, the Imperial Navy could not hold it back. Worse still, at the height of the engagement, Admiral Perol, the naval commander, received converse that 3 more Orc fleets were inbound. The numbers were stacking beyond compare. The combined fleets numbered over 2,000 ships and at least 12 space hulks, which are huge lumps of a thing. The largest number ever to assail an Imperial world. The strength of the Orc commanders did not lie in numbers alone. The Imperial Navy encountered dozens of rocks. Rocks are asteroid fortresses that the Orcs use. They cannot travel through the warp, but they sort of get attached to space hulks and other ships. And they were no real use in the space engagements, but it did suggest something was going on. They didn't know what, though. Little did they know. On the planet below, there were frenzied preparations. Titan legions booted up, Imperial Guard were mustered, and over 20 different chapters were in place, including the Black Templars, the Celestial Lions, the Salamanders, and dozens more. I'm going to, when I do another story, I'm going to focus on Hell's Reach within this in another video, I think, because that was quite a big engagement. Commissar Yarrick was the last to arrive on his Fortress of Arrogance, the Baneblade from which he had led the assault on Golgotha. Don't ask me how he got it there. I think there was a book called Gunheads about how they got the Fortress of Arrogance back, but I haven't read it. 6 weeks after arriving in the Armageddon system, Ghazghkull's armada descended upon the planet. And this time he was not messing about. Hades' Hive was bombed. Obliterated. The entire Hive and its inhabitants were obliterated by giant asteroids launched from the orbiting space hulks. Megatons, not sure, of rock hit home like the hammer blows of an angry god. This act of annihilation was Ghazghkull's vengeance against Yarrick. He just bombed that Hive to oblivion. It just was not there. Yarrick saw this coming, and so he removed all the guardsmen, but the civilians, dead. As the fires lit the eastern horizon, the Orc warbands clashed near Volcanus, Acheron, and Deathmire. Ground-based defence lasers and missile silos took a terrible toll, but the survivors regrouped and assailed the defences that soon more and more reached the planet's surface unscathed. They were just taking these batteries out. The sulphur yellow skies became interwoven with twisting contrails as thousands of fighter bombers duelled with thunderbolts and marauders, the Imperial fighters. They're not Valkyries and Vendettas, though. Tribe after tribe, born from spores seeded over 50 years ago, swept out of the equatorial jungle. These cleanse and purge missions were not working fully. There were thousands of Orcs left in the jungles, and they came out realising what was going on. Tales of ghosts spread like wildfire. That might be down to Boss Snickrot. Acheron Hive fell without warning, captured by treachery. The instigator was none other than the infamous war criminal von Straub. He was jailed as a war criminal after how much he screwed up the first time. So he broke out, and a load of orc brutes, and between them they sort of said, "Throw the gates open, and you're not going to stop me, because if you do, my orky friends will shoot you." That was pretty much it. It was his divine right to rule over Armageddon alongside Ghazghkull. No. We don't know what happened to von Straub, but we assume it wasn't good. Orklanders fell from the skies. The orc attacks, though, were being beaten back by the Steel Legion and the Astartes, but again and again they would regroup and attack again. The defenders were on breaking point. And this is where the rocks came in. Now, you may remember I said the rocks were unable to travel through space. So they used them to make planetfall, crashing down like mobile fortresses. Many were shot down. That's what you'd expect. However, many of them did make it down, and they were pretty useful. However, they actually landed a fair few in the Fire Wastes and the Deadlands to the north and south. Even Yarrick was confused, as these grim, forbidding lands had always been believed to be uninhabitable and tactically useless. So, why? Well, I'll tell you why. Weeks later, their usefulness became apparent when hundreds of tanker-sized orc submersibles rose from the polluted waters. They'd been teleported down into the waters and brought through to attack the docklands at Tempestora and Hell's Reach. Okay, not good. And surprise was total, as the sea-scarred vessels disgorged thousands of orcs. Tempestora fell within days, and the Hell's Reach dockyards were captured. Again, this is another story for another day. There were also landings in Primus, Secundus, and Equatorial jungles, which became rallying points, and they also had teleporter arrays. Uh-oh. The fighting raged on until the planet itself would fall apart. Half of Armageddon was gone in months. This was not the speed of Armageddon 2. This was a lot slower. And ever more reinforcements were coming. This was the holy grail for orcs, the never-ending war, and they're flocking to it, drawn by the scent of hot blood. In the Howling Waste, the Space Marines began to establish battle lines. More and more troops were pulled away from the Eastern Fringe. They were like, this planet is so important, we can't let the orcs have it, we'll take them away from the Nids. We'll not forget the Nids, but we'll have less troops against the Nids, we need them here. That happened. Von Straub was hunted down and killed by the Last Chances. They're a famous little regiment, the Penal Legion, Schaefer's Last Chances, the 13th, I believe. Unlucky for some. Hello? Hang on, guys. Whoops. Okay, I'm back. My iPad now won't stand up. Typical. Okay, I was just saying about the fact that the Imperial Guard were being pulled from the Eastern Fringe and being yanked over to Armageddon. So when an Imperial Guard regiment is deployed, it is generally given a place to go. The fleet generally don't know this, but the astropaths and navigators know. And instead of being sent here, they were being sent here to Armageddon. Yeah. And I've just realised the video's timer is now just past 23 minutes, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly. And at this point, everything's going well. Ghazghkull's probably got it where he wants it. And then Armageddon stepped in. The season of fire broke up on Armageddon. Temperatures outside of the Hive soared. The greenskins themselves were forced to take cover. Lava boiled across the landscapes in lethal rivers that broke battle lines and forced troops to abandon their positions. Stalemate. That's where we're at. Unable to take to the field, Ghazghkull ran out of patience. He got fed up. He left the planet to his top generals and buggered off, basically. His work had been done. Armageddon was an internal state of war, and so many troops had been diverted that there were many worlds ripe for conquest within easy reach. And Yarrick got pissed. He was not happy. Why has he gone? He should still be here. I want my vengeance. So he took the Black Templars on a crusade and said, we're going to get Ghazghkull. And that's what they're doing now. When Ghazghkull heard of his old enemy's pursuit, his reaction was a slow and ugly smile. For those of you who are in Britain or watch Top Gear, think Jeremy Clarkson. That little sarcastic grin, you know what I mean. In both Orc and Imperial society, Armageddon has become a byword for a war to end all wars. Instead of being the destruction of all things and the end of the world as we know it, as we would class Armageddon, that's how they class it. More greenskin reinforcements flood in with each passing day to get a piece of the big scrap, as they call it. The planet remains besieged by an invasion of unprecedented size, and Ghazghkull has since laid waste to dozens of planets around Armageddon. Only time will tell if the defenders can win their star system back before it's consumed completely by the Orcs' lust for battle. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Ghazghkull Thraka, or probably, as I should have put it better, the story of Armageddon, with a bit of Ghazghkull thrown in. So that basically explains where Ghazghkull came from, why he got famous, what he did in between the Armageddon Wars, and then what he did when he got back. And it's a pretty destructive tale. I mean, every Orc's tale should be, but man. And he is still the greatest Orc warlord that there is and will possibly ever be. I don't know if they're going to rewrite somebody into the fluff in another codex. So be sure to let me know what you think. I apologise that this video has passed 25 minutes. I'm very sorry about that. I generally try and keep my videos to about 15. I probably should have broken this up into Armageddon 2 and Armageddon 3. But that's a lesson. You live and learn. So thank you for watching. Be sure to leave any comments down below or head over to Twitter at Tactica Imperial. I'm happy to talk with you guys on there. Something else. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, or if you think it's too long. I don't really mind if you hit the dislike button. It just tell me I'm doing something wrong. My next video will be light magic for fantasy tactics, and then I'll be back with something probably from 40k. Maybe just recapping the 7th rules, or perhaps I will have something for the Orc Codex. We'll see. So thank you for watching. My name is Michael, and I will see you all again.